another video, and today I have a special guest with me. This is my friend Jean, and he works for a big company that helps students to write essays, and I thought that would be a perfect thing to bring him in here and talk with him about writing academic essays and to ask him about his process and what is the best way to write an academic essay and to get an A.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're just doing our best to help people find how to move on with their academic writing. So they just have, just do our best to make sure they have a better vision of what to do, what not to do, and what to take into consideration to make sure that as the final outcome of all this, they have a better paper. So they become better authors, better writers.
But first, we're going to talk about what is an essay and give some kind of a definition of that. Because we kind of all know what it is, but what it is really, that's the question.
Oh yeah, still in the age of modern technology, you can Google it up anytime, but still let us just do our best and come up with our own definition of what an essay is. So from my standpoint, it's one of the most basic forms of academic writing, but still it's the one which gives you plenty of room for creativity, because there is no strict form of what to talk about in your essay, because still you have a topic, you have a specific structure. Yeah, structure is really important because it depends on how reader-friendly your essay is, and that is important because essay writing and in some form of it is frankly storytelling. And if you have a better essay, if you have a decent essay written once, you can easily have a better essay written the next time. So each time you put effort into making a good essay with decent flaw, which is reader friendly, you're much likely to become a better writer each time you complete a new paper, a new essay.
Okay, so we're gonna start, and today we thought it will be a great thing to actually write an essay in real time.
Because why not?
Because why not? Because we can. That's the whole point of this thing, that you can write a good essay in a short amount of time, and we're gonna show you how to do it, basically. Yeah. Well, Jean is gonna show you how to do it. I have no idea. Okay, so for today's essay, we chose the topic
social media and how social media impact academic life and education.
We thought that this topic is very timely because we all use social media. We are on social media platform right now. Yeah, so that's why we want to talk about in what ways it impacts academic life of students, in what ways it can be useful, in what ways it can be disadvantageous. Is that a word?
Advantageous, maybe, but
still,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess now it's a word. Let's start with an essay, and how are we starting? So what is your process?
Basically, like my personal approach is to get your thoughts together, just to analyze what kind of idea do you have in your mind and what you want to talk about, and basically. It's still a good idea to have a plan, like maybe a couple of bullet points for like every paragraph, because an essay has a specific structure, because most papers, especially academic papers, they are structured. First of all, it's important to have a certain structure and to stick to it to make sure it is reader friendly. So yeah, let's get down to business and just have a couple of bullet points here.
Let's do that. So let's start with the, we have an introduction.
We're gonna have an introduction.
And in the introduction, we're gonna present our whole idea about what social media is and how it impacts. Okay, so we gotta start with something like
maybe something more general, just to focus on the issue and just to lead the reader gradually towards the main point of discussion.
Okay, smart. Okay,
so basically our first point, which is also our introduction, is how technology impacts our life. And apparently education and academic environment are parts of our life. So
Okay, in the body then we're going to talk about social media. What are the advantages of social media?
yeah,
And
and
what
disadvantages apparently.
yeah, and disadvantages, of course, yes. But first the advantages, I guess.
True,
Gotta
true.
start with the happy pappy talk. Like, it's good, social media is great, so good. And then I cry in the dark corner, like I hate it. First, the advantage of social media, I think.
In education, just as simple as that, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's education, but also maybe information
Let
is
us say-
fast, just social media and stuff like that, yeah?
Yeah, let us say like the role and benefits of social media in academic environment.
Yeah,
'Cause-
okay.
'cause- Right, well, while you drop your first lines, maybe I'll just take a minute to share a couple of tips and tricks. What should be taken into consideration when it comes to writing and academic writing? A lot, apparently a lot, because everything matters. So first of all, get to know your instructor and get to know what he pays attention to. Well, when it comes to our business, our writers share a lot of information with our customers, and what they bring their attention to is formatting, because it is important in the realm of academic writing, because having a well-formatted paper is much likely to increase your chances of getting a decent grade. So in order to have proper formatting, you need to know which kind of formatting style is required in your particular case. The application depends on the type of paper you're working on. So if you have something with thorough research, scholarly paper, and disciplines like, let us say, management, you're most likely to have APA style. If that's an essay or a composition, which is more of a, let us say, reflection thing, you're much likely to have MLA style applied. When it comes to sources, I think everybody knows that, but still it's always worth mentioning that nowadays Wikipedia is not considered as a credible source. Make sure your source is not out of date, because most scholarly papers, they require up-to-date sources. You can also consult your instructor on that, but in most cases, your sources should not be older than like 5 years.
Like seriously, like every day there are new studies published, new information available, and so you might be missing some really key points in your research by using some really old sources. Okay.
Yeah, so basically your sources need to reflect on what modern science thinks about it.
I wrote the thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
my bullet points might be weird, but that's fine.
let's give it a try.
But bullet points is something that does not go
Something
into
basic,
your,
yeah.
like, so technology impacts our life in different ways. Then a second point is, okay, hello. Advantages of social media for students and their academic life, which is our main, like, point,
Yeah.
I think, that we are trying to make, and then disadvantages of social media, and then conclusions, which is like a really, really simple, easy structure that anyone can follow. And I think with the essays, as you said, that they should be reader friendly.
Reader-friendly,
That's
yeah.
like one of the most important things, because I think your professor, if he opens your essay and he like does not understand like the thesis statement, he will just close it and be like, okay. Now we're gonna do what?
Well, basically we have our bullet points, so we can actually get down to writing, because we already have a couple of these in mind. For this particular paper, we're not going to use any specific sources. It's just a simple paper, and we're actually referring to commonly known facts which don't need extra justification. So, well, let's get down to actual writing.
Title?
Yes, so we...
Do you write title first, or do you write like body first and then put the title?
Actually, my personal approach, and I know a lot of writers do that too, they come up with the actual paper and then put in a title just to make sure that the title itself reflects the content.
Okay, so let's start with our introduction. Let's start with technology, because our first bullet point is technology impacts our life in different ways. Okay, so technology makes a great impact.
And I know how we live with our daily routine, because we use technology all the time. I mean, transportation, all that equipment in our kitchen.
Yeah, okay. And how we deal with everything in our daily routine.
That should be the option we go for.
The first sentence done. Great.
So,
many more to go. Okay.
Sounds like we're out of battery.
Okay, we got our charger now, and we have our introduction now. It's a couple of sentences. Basically, what we're saying here is that technology impacts everything that we deal with in our daily routine, and education is no exception. However, there are some concerns about negative effects of social
Technology, and
media.
in particular social media, because we have advantages and we have disadvantages. Apparently, everything has both sides to them. Basically, we're done with our introduction. Many people, let us say, underestimate the role of this part of the paper because everything's like, oh, okay, it's introduction. It's just a couple of sentences just to give the reader a better vision of what's going to happen next in the paper. But there is a bit more to it. So introduction is actually important. Why? Introduction is going to convince the reader to move on with the content, because you're actually justifying why this topic is worth your reader's attention. That should be pretty much it. It should not be very long. It's just one paragraph, but you should mention why this topic is important, why it is worth your reader's attention, and basically what is going to be explored in your paper. What it will reflect on. So once you have that tackled, you can move on to the main body of your paper.
And that's what we're gonna do now.
Right now.
And we're gonna come back, and I'm gonna fast forward this part because we're gonna just bounce off a couple of ideas of what are the advantages of social media, and we're gonna come back and tell you.
Yeah, we'll just
what
drop a
are
couple
they.
of lines. We'll drop a couple of lines and keep you posted on what's happening.
Okay, so we are in the middle of writing our first paragraph about the advantages of social media, and we are just gonna stop here and talk about what we're thinking. My biggest thing with social media, I think, is that it's a great thing to use to talk to your peers and stuff. I remember in university, my biggest thing with social media was that our whole group of philosophers, we had a group chat on Facebook, and that was the only way that we communicated outside university. And we shared homework there, we shared our notes, we shared everything in that group chat. So that was a really great way to communicate with my group mates, with my study mates. So yeah, that's my biggest thing with social media.
That's true, because the entire nature of social networks as a technology is the main benefit is incredible audience reach, because when you find an article online, on most websites, you have an option to reblog it to any kind of social media, be it Facebook or Pinterest, and instantly your followers can just go ahead and check that content, and they go ahead and find exactly the information they were looking for. So it is very important, I think. And that's the main benefit of social media.
Okay, we're done with our disadvantages, and basically the disadvantages are that it really impacts mental health of students, because what you see on social media is not always the truth. It's most probably not the truth.
Highly polished content, which does not always properly reflect the actual reality.
And also, my least favorite thing about social media, and in terms of studying, those really pretty pictures of those notebooks and those notes from lectures that are perfect calligraphy, handwriting, and I'm like, who
does that?
who does that? Yeah, like all of my notes I remember looked like mess, but like I could find what I need to find in them. And I think that a lot of people get the idea that their handwriting and their notes have to look like that, and that's not true.
It can be a real time pit because you can find some funny content and spend countless hours watching it instead of doing something really cool. I mean, you can spend at least like 30 minutes from that time to check on actually found a cool article a couple of days ago on how to use synonyms to just bring that diversity into your writing, because when you're using all the same words, it gets kind of boring. It disrupts the flow in your paper, and well, the reader is not likely to get that much satisfaction from having that paper in front of them.
And another thing I wanted to say about writing, it's like a tip from me, because I really like transition, like linking phrases, and there are actually, like with the synonyms, you can find them on the internet. With the linking words and phrases, you can do the same. You can go to Google and just type in like transition words, and you will find like dozens of them, and that also will diversify your writing. You can choose the word that really suits your writing style and the content of your paper. You can really just like personalize your essay, which is also a really important thing, because when your professor reads your essay, they have to kind of like know that it was written by you, that it is personal.
It has that personal touch.
We had the disadvantages, and now we're gonna go to the last part, which is the conclusion. Yay! And we're gonna come back with that. Okay, so now we have our conclusion, right? We have talked about positive and negative effects of social media. Now we have to kind of like conclude it all and tell people what was that all about. So basically we tell them that there are positive and negative aspects to social media and how it impacts academic life. And it is always a matter of balance, how you use everything basically in life, and how you utilize all the available resources. And so social media can be a good thing and can be a bad thing if you let it kind of like turn into a
into your time pit.
Yeah, into your time pit. That's what we did here. So our essay is basically complete. What we have to do now is format it.
Absolutely, but before that, I would like to just have a quick look at it and make sure we carry out a thorough proofreading, because inspiration gets back to you, and like you have your thoughts like breaking through this dam, and they like flow all one at the same time, and you can end up with a lot of run-on sentences. So a quick pro tip here, and I met a lot of students having their papers marked by their teachers, and teachers really pay attention to your sentences, and run-on sentences, long sentences, they really cripple the reader friendliness of the paper. Make sure you break them down into several sentences instead of making a long one, because it's really hard to read that, and by the end of the sentence you don't really remember what was at the very beginning. When you have simple and short sentences, you're in kind of safe zone.
Now we're going to format our paper. It's just a blob of text right now, and we need to make it look somewhat presentable.
In this case, in our scenario, we have an essay. So a simple paper with a lot of description, a lot of reflection, a lot of thoughts sharing. So the most common formatting style for this kind of papers is MLA.
Can you tell me what should I do with this?
Absolutely. You have 1-inch margins. You have, well, in our scenario, it's a frequently requested font, so we're going to use Times New Roman. Font size is going to be 12 in this case. We're going to use double spacing because in most scenarios it is the standard value, like 12. It is left alignment,
Yeah.
And
Why is it left? Is there a reason behind this, or is it just like just because?
still, even I saw a couple of examples. Students shared a couple of grading rubrics with me, and despite having MLA format requested, they had different alignment requirements. But still, in most situations, we have left alignment. So we have header, which has page number situated at the top right corner and the last name of the student. And the first page begins with, like, we have left alignment and we have fields like name, instructor name, course name, date, and then we have the centrally aligned title of your paper. So with what we managed to write down, our title is Role of Social Media in Modern Education. So that's just the title we managed to come up with. If you want to share your thoughts,
It's very simple.
yeah, just put it in the comment section below.
And maybe we'll rename it. So it's role of social media in modern education.
Yeah,
so I just
it
put
should be centrally aligned. Yeah, just
okay,
to the
central
center.
alignment.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
the title.
cool.
And that's pretty much it. As we already mentioned, we did not use any specific sources here because we referred to something we call common knowledge, like, come on, everyone knows it. But like some MLA style papers, they do have sources, and you can still check on the internet how to cite those sources properly, how to use punctuation to cite them properly, and basically your format is the first thing you're gonna keep in mind to stay away from trouble and make sure you get a good grade.
Okay, so this is basically everything that we've done. Our paper is complete. What are we gonna do with it? We're gonna put it on Google Drive, and we're gonna link
Yeah, the link will be posted in the
description. Yeah, we're gonna link it in the description. You can go check it out, see for yourself, and we're gonna open the comments in the Google Drive, so you can actually go and comment on the paper, and maybe you have some more ideas, or you want to start a conversation about something, or maybe you want to ask something. So you can actually comment on that paper as well as on this video if you want to. Now let's summarize what have we done here.
A step-by-step guide on how to get out of trouble when you face academic writing. Yeah. Say, rule number 1, I guess, stay away from using plagiarism. Like, never, ever at all. I mean, don't plagiarize, really. It's not worth it. Rule number 2, which applies in 100% of all situations, is stick to the right formatting style. Yeah. Just make sure to check your instructions carefully and make sure you pick the right formatting style, the right edition of that formatting style. Your instructor may as well specify the exact edition he wants you to apply in that paper. Then make sure
plan. I think.
Make sure you have a plan. Make sure you have a list of issues you want to address in your paper. Then go and do a proper research. I mean, don't cut your time on doing research, and make sure you have credible sources. Make sure these sources are up to date.
Then 5. That's 5. I think that's tip number 5. Okay, introduction.
Yeah, just make sure to follow a proper paper structure. So for any essay, it is introduction, main body, and conclusion. Make sure to proofread because I mean everyone needs proofreading. Even pro writers do that to make sure that you don't have any typos, you don't have any punctuation mistakes.
Yeah, and if you can't do it yourself, if you don't have time or you are not sure in your abilities to proofread, you can actually pay somebody to proofread, and that's also or ask your friends for free. Use your friends for free, and ask somebody to proofread your paper if you're not sure in yourself.
Make sure to proofread.
Okay, and then in introduction, we introduce the main idea, and we try to explain what the paper will be about.
And why it is important.
Yeah, and why this issue is important. Then in the main body, we actually explore the problem that we said that we would explore. And we try to structure it in the way that makes sense. So for us, for example, we had advantages and disadvantages. So first we started with advantages and we finished with disadvantages. So we didn't mix them. You have a couple of paragraphs usually well, at least a couple of paragraphs in your main body. So try to use transitional sentences and words to make it a little bit more fluid and also
Reader friendly.
yeah, reader friendly, make it make sense. That's the rule number one, make it make sense. And then we have a conclusion, which is
It's really important. I mean, no joking, really. Conclusion is an important part of a paper. First of all, it needs to be in tight relation with your introduction, because conclusion of your paper is the proof that basically the paper itself served its initial purpose. Conclusion depends on the type of paper you're working on, because in case with essays, conclusion basically proves the point that you investigated in the paper, and it should be like 1 or maybe 2 paragraphs, and you do not raise any extra questions. You wrap up your thoughts on it, and that's pretty much it, period. When it comes to different kinds of papers, like research papers, most of them in the conclusion section, they do mention that well, we managed to elaborate on the issue, we managed to come up with some kind of conclusion. This research is a contribution of some sort, but there are a couple of points which need further research, further analysis, but that's for the case with research papers. When it comes to essays, you do not need to do that. So in essays, conclusion section does not raise any extra questions.
interesting. I actually did not know that. And that makes sense. So yeah, that's it for today. And I really thank you for coming here and sharing your
Thanks for
tips.
having me.
Sharing your tips, your professional tips with me. Yeah, if you want another video with Gene, write in the comments down below and I will try to bring him back. And maybe we can do like a Q&A video. So just request in the comments down below what you would like to see, what you would like us to talk about next. And for now, this was Julia.
And Gene.
And I'll see you in the next one.
See you guys.